Best places to invest in real estate. This is the Pablo Henrique channel. Like and subscription is not requested, it is conquered. This week, we're gonna be talking about the very best places to invest in real estate. And for fun bonus, I'm also gonna talk about where not to invest. Now, if we're gonna talk about the very best markets to invest in, let's start with where not to invest, your backyard. Why would I say such a thing? You would be most comfortable with your personal geography, in your surrounding area. Well, I'll tell you right now, the nation is made up of 350 sub-markets, and there's bound to be 5 hot, killer, amazing markets out there, and the bottom line is, statistically, your backyard is probably not one of them. And what's that gonna do to your ROI and overall experience in real estate? I'll tell you right now that on average, it'll actually cut down your return on investment by 50, 60, or 80%. So, where are the very best places to invest? Well, more important question right now is timing, because have you ever heard of the phrase, market bubble, the bubble popped, and what happened? Well, think about real estate, how it's going up over time in value, but it doesn't move in a straight line, right? Everything over that line is, we call it a bubble, and bubbles do eventually pop. And the inverse of that is what you'd call a trough, and troughs also pop. We have to come back. Why? Because of inflation, and because real estate will always come back to at least what it cost to build a house as long as we're making babies, cause it's population driven. Now, think about that bubble for a moment and think about that trough for a moment. In a bubble, I'm using a cash flow strategy. And the purpose is to go into a cash flow market. I want to go to a market that has a really high cap rate. If you're an investor, you know what I mean by that. That means that if I buy a house, I get a mortgage, I take into account all of my expenses and how much cash flow's left. And how does that cash flow relate to the money that I put in? And that gives me a cap rate or helps me understand what my net margin is. Generally, if an investor can find something at 8 or 10%, they're thrilled. I go into markets where I shoot for 13 and 14%. Now, my last 1,000 deals, that's what I hit on average. So, in a cash flow market, really the focus is on a short-term single-family home rental. You can hold that home in 3 or 5 years in an optimum market like we talked about before, meaning one of those top 5 of 350 submarkets. Similarly, if you find the market crashing and you're in this trough, that's an excellent time to be making money in real estate, because that's where you can actually hone in on markets that have a huge equity play, hence I call it an equity growth strategy. Because in those markets, I want to go in where they have an overload of auction properties, HUD sales, foreclosures. And there's so many of them happening that we can't enough investors in there to help clean that economy up. And that's what we do in those markets. Now, right now around the United States, you're always going to have hot cash flow markets and you're always going to have hot growth markets. And personally, I like to have my hand in both because it's going to depend ultimately on my personal strategy. And what market is ultimately going to serve what my really big picture goal is, which really comes down to depending on whether I'm focusing on increasing my net worth or my cash flow. So what then are the very best markets? Well, now that you understand the difference between a cash flow market and an equity growth market, at least currently right now, I usually spend 3, 4, 5 years in each of these markets. For cash flow, I'll go to Memphis, Tennessee. I'll go to Indiana, Indianapolis. Those 2 markets right now give me cap rates of 13, 14% on average, which, as you now know, that's a really high figure. That represents the best in the country. If I'm going for equity play, I'm in Phoenix, Las Vegas. Right now, Orlando is a huge equity growth market that has just come online. In that market, I can purchase homes so far below the market in terms of the rebuild value. Now ultimately the best comes down to your game plan. Do not be one of those investors that doesn't have a plan and just says, hey, I'm gonna go from good deal to good deal. Going from house to house is haphazard. You want to have a game plan that says there's a reason for this purchase and I know exactly how this purchase is going to get me to my goal when it comes to my definition of necessary residual income to achieve financial independence. Finally, make sure that you work with a team that has an infrastructure set up in those markets, because you don't want to go there, hop on a plane, and become an out-of-state investor without having proper infrastructure. Because if you've got bulk on your side, if you've got team and leverage in place, you'll have a chance of really succeeding in the very best markets that are out there. Now watch this video right here for you to learn how to make big money. Videos every day at 8 p.m. Watch this video right here. Thank you so much everyone for watching. My name is Pablo Henrique and I'll see you in the next video.